Hey guys, welcome back to lesson 3.2. In this lesson, we're going to tackle a topic that sounds complex, but is actually very, very important. And if I were to say that if there was only one lesson that I would be getting paid for, it would be this lesson. This video has the secret, the golden rule of the entire course. This is the most important lesson in the entire course because in this lesson, I'm going to teach you something that will make development with AI so easy for you. Now, it's not easy to learn, it's a little bit complex, but bear with me, you will understand what I mean by the end of this lesson. So, let's start. You might have a question. How do big companies manage Flutter projects? Bigger companies like Google, um, Facebook, all companies are using Flutter projects. How do they manage it? And the answer is clean architecture. What they do is they use a type of Flutter architecture called clean architecture. And what it does is it separates your apps into layers. And what do I mean by layers? I will explain it in a second, but let's say you have an app in which you have, for example, one feature, like you have an app on which you can post photos, let's say. And right now, people can just view photos. But in the future, people start asking for the option like photos. You do not have that functionality built in. What do? You go back and write code and fix that functionality. Now, it very quickly, with bigger teams, it becomes a jumbled up project, what we call spaghetti code. This was the solution. Clean architecture was the solution that programmers came up with to define, to maintain large projects. So, with bigger projects, you need to create modules. Modules like photos on one side and likes on the other side. And bigger projects, because they are also used by millions of people, they need to be testable. And because if a project is very big, you need to also make it scalable, meaning that it needs to be used by hundreds of millions of people. Hopefully, your projects will also be in the hands of millions of people someday. But that's what big companies do. So, clean architecture is basically the tool that they use. If you are a beginner, you must be thinking, I just learned all these new widgets. I just learned, for example, I just learned an app bar or a center or a column. Why do I have to learn clean architecture? Well, the answer is easy to test, reusable business logic, no spaghetti code, easier to scale. But that's not why you are here, right? All this information is freely available. You are here because it's what works best with AI. And that's why we are here. Basically, if you are going to work with AI, you need to use clean architecture. At some point, all projects get jumbled up. This small sample project of the counter is not very jumbled up. There's only one file. But in larger projects, you have hundreds and thousands of files, perhaps, and definitely thousands and millions of lines of code. And as AI is trying to do that, AI also learns from code that already exists, code that already exists on Stack Overflow, in other places, GitHub, for example. So, what works best with AI? Clean architecture. If you are going to speed up your process, you are going to have to learn clean architecture. But here's the thing, You don't have to learn it in extreme detail. You just have to understand the basics of it. There are basically three layers of clean architecture: the UI layer, which has the widgets; the domain layer, which has the business logic, the use cases, the entities; and data layer, which handles APIs and databases. Now, let's show you an example of that. I think it will be much easier. So, we go back to our sample project, select all of it, and copy. And let's go to GPT. So, here we are. Let's ask it, this is a counter. Convert it to clean architecture and explain it as well. Also give the folder structure. Now what GPT is going to do is convert this simple Flutter counter into layers. So as we know, there are layers in clean architecture. There's a presentation layer, which shows you the widgets. There's a state management layer. There's an application layer, and there's a domain layer. Well, application layer is mostly just part of presentation layer. There's a domain layer, and there is a data layer. So right now we see we have this folder structure. GPT has created for us a folder structure with data. This is our data layer. Domain, this is our domain layer, and this is our presentation layer. Now, right now, by default, GPT has created 4 layers, right? Let's ask it to create 3 layers. The 3 layers version is standard. Create it in 3 layers. Location, domain, and data. So now we have a data layer, a domain layer, and presentation layer. So what it has done right now is divided our project into 3 different layers. Now what you're going to do on your own time is basically read about these yourself, but not too deep. You don't really need to understand what's happening. You just need to understand what AI works with best, because your goal is not to understand these in depth Flutter concepts or in depth clean architecture concepts. Your goal is to build an app. And if you learn about clean architecture and if you implement clean architecture in your project from the beginning, you will have a great advantage working with AI. So you can actually copy all these files, you can create these folders right here, and you can copy all these files, you can copy all this code, and you can run it, and it will work. But we will be doing that ourselves in our 5th module. So right now, you just need to read these. You just need to ask GPT about anything. For example, concrete repository. What is a what is this? And we'll tell you what is a concrete repository, right? Stop it. I don't really want to know. So you can read about this, you can study about this, and that's it. You don't really need to go in depth about it. You just need to know that you should implement clean architecture and work with clean architecture, because that's what makes it easy for AI to understand your code. The next question is, when should you use clean architecture? Good reasons to use clean architecture. If not working with AI, you're building an app with more than 3, 4 screens, then use clean architecture. Let's say you have an app with 2 or 3 screens, very small app, don't use clean architecture. You don't want to write unit tests. Let's say you're building an app for yourself, your friends. You want to write unit tests, then use clean architecture. Otherwise, don't use it. If you're working on a team, let's say you're a professional and you would like to work with others, then you should use clean architecture. If you're just yourself or your kid or your friends, no need for it. If you want to scale or add features later, you'll have to use clean architecture. Otherwise, don't. But here's the golden rule: if working with AI, always use clean architecture. And that's what this course is about. Did you see what I did there? Almost all apps will sooner or later work in a team, will sooner or later add features, will sooner or later grow with from 3 to 4 screens to 10, 20 screens, and would like to test, of course. So always use clean architecture, especially when you're working with AI. This is a no brainer. And that is what will give you the main advantage. Really, guys, this is a golden rule. And this is what I'm selling in this course to you. You are working with AI, you should always use clean architecture and almost always mention it in the project rules and always mention it in your prompts. But we will see how we will do that in our fifth module. Right now, you just need to remember it. And that is it, guys. Clean architecture is a word that you should always remember from now on. Now, what I want you to do right now is I will give you a prompt. What's the difference between layered architecture and clean architecture in Flutter? I want you to try asking AI this yourself and see what answer it comes up with. That's it, guys. Have fun and see you in the next lesson.